Hello all, Fireball here, and welcome back to the Fireball Archives. Today we'll be looking at the Wood Elves. So, I've only got the 3rd edition statistics here, because I'm on the Forgotten Realms wiki. So we'll be going with the 3rd edition statistics, but that's not really the major part. We're looking mostly at the description and the personality and everything, and the culture and everything like that. So to start off with, Wood Elves are medium humanoids. They're usually of the neutral alignment. They have low light vision. Their homelands are the Dale Lands, the Great Dale, the High Forest, the North, the West, and the Western Heartlands. They love temperate rainforests, or forests, and the languages that they can speak are Elven and Common, which is what you would have as, well, if you're playing, you would have those languages as a level 1 Wood Elf, or level 1 Elf. So, Wood Elves are also known as Copper Elves, or in the Elven language, they're known as Untitled Chapter. They were the most populous of the Elven races, and they saw themselves as guardians of the Untitled Chapter forest homes that were largely abandoned after the Crown Wars and before the retreat. But unlike most elves, they do not view themselves as a people apart from the rest of Faerun. Wood Elves were easily identifiable by their coppery skin and green, brown, or hazel eyes. Wood Elven hair was usually black or brown, although hues such as blonde or copper red were also found. Sorry, Charlie's tweeting in the background. He's playing around with everything. So Wood Elves tended to dress in simple clothes, similar to those of the Moon Elves, but with fewer bold colours and a greater... number... Oh, God damn it, sorry. And a greater... Where are we? And a greater number of earth tones that blended into their natural surroundings. Accustomed to the harsh, naturalistic lifestyle, Wood Elves loved to wear leather armour, even when they were not under immediate threat. Wood Elves were roughly identical to other elves in height and build, with males larger than females. Wood Elves were often stronger than other Tel'Quisiir, including other elves, but were frequently less cerebral than Moon and Sun Elves, who put greater value on education. Alright, so for their personality, as a people, Wood Elves were largely seen as calm and level-headed. Arousing strong emotions in Wood Elves was not something that was easily done, though many did have a strong aversion for large cities, having lost the passion for urbanization after the fall of Erlen. To Wood Elves, the trappings of civilization, including the mightiest of fortresses or tallest walls, were transient and impermanent things that would eventually be overcome by the long processes of nature. To many, this attitude seemed condescending, weakening the bonds between the Wood Elves and other races. Additionally, Wood Elves could sometimes seem off-putting compared to the other Tel'Quisiir, with a gruff manner that made them less charismatic despite their avowed compassion and humility. Well, Jesus. Wood Elven romantic and sexual relationships were often polyamorous in nature. Members of the race freely engaging or ceasing relations with new partners, feeling of jealousy and possessiveness were as a result viewed by the race as reasons for teasing or mockery. As a result of these perspectives on love, High Elves often believed that any relationships engaged with Wood Elves would be destined to fail from the start. That wasn't in the Moon Elf, or nothing like that was in the Moon Elves or Sun Elf section. Alright, for culture. Wood Elves consider themselves the heirs of the ancient Elven empires established prior to the Crown Wars. But they share few of the cultural characteristics that marked such early realms as Avandor and Ithilien. Although a proud people, Wood Elves felt that compassion was a greater virtue than strength, and Wood Elven realms were less concerned with expansion than they were with maintaining amiable relationships with their neighbours. Wood Elves were not nomadic, however, as was common amongst the Wild Elves. Instead, they were organised into scattered, carefully concealed villages united under a gerontocratic hierarchy composed of village councils consisting of the most distinguished families' eldest members. These councils were often advised by local druids, whose influence played no small part in wood elven politics, and who were frequently served as the wedding that bound any number of villages together as one realm. Charlie, calm down, buddy. He's a good boy. Compared to the other Tail Corsair, wood elves had a notable disinterest in the arcane arts. To a wood elf, the wizard's spells were little different from the mason's castle walls or the tiller's plough, a means of controlling the natural world, which was contrary to the common ethic of living in harmony with nature rather than trying to dominate it that so many wood elves espouse. As such, wood elven adventurers were more likely to take on careers that did not require the use of arcane magic. In particular, many were drawn to the path of the fighter, the ranger, or the rogue, relying on a natural-born skill to overcome obstacles. Compared with other Tail Corsair, very few wood elves went on to become spell slingers or blade singers. So basically, they were a sub-race of elves that basically would not tend towards arcane magic. Divine magic, because obviously rangers have divine magic. Maybe. There is one major exception to the wood elven taboo on arcane magic, which was the arcane archers. And in order to be an arcane archer, say in Neverwinter's Nights, you needed to have at least one level of an arcane class, wizard or sorcerer in there. In a place like that, in order to become an arcane archer. But they counted on arcane archers who counted among their number several wood elves. Other wood elves from even more remote areas were drawn to the ways of the barbarian, while many religious wood elves became druids with clerics, often seen in much the same light as wizards. Those wood elves who did become clerics might eventually become hierophants. Many wood elven adventurers also became harpers. For art and leisure, wood elves commonly felt that they were in harmony with their natural surroundings, and an examination of their art helped to justify this belief. While wood elves did not wander like wild animals as the wild elves did, wood elves did their best to have a minimal impact on their natural surroundings, a fact reflected in their architecture. Frequently, wood elven homes were made of natural fieldstone or carefully furnished wood, but on occasion, wood elves were known to do without even these creature comforts, living in the limbs of mighty trees or sheltered caves, rejecting furniture or any possessions that couldn't be carried with them. So close did wood elven villages resemble their surroundings, that humans were occasionally known to wander through one without even noticing. Increased contact with other races since the end of the retreat. Of course, some of these cultural practices come in question, but for the large part of the wood elves of the 14th century, by directly, lived much the same as their ancestors did. In keeping with their naturalistic inclination, wood elves were not particularly fine metalworkers and had no interest in developing any such skills. However, wood elves were among some of the world's finest carpenters and stoneworkers, masters of the crafting of bows and arrows as well as in leather tanning. Wood elves even developed a number of specialized arrows, including some that flew farther than usual, as well as some that used as signal devices. So carefully guarded were wood and elven crafted secrets that even experienced fighters from other races had difficulty emulating wood elven designs. Wood elven leather armor also often doubled as camouflage, disguising a wood elven hunter from potential enemies. Compared with wild elven designs, wood elven crafting often looked surprisingly elegant, though they were often made of the same materials and used similar methods, reflecting some of the difference between the two elven subraces. While wood elves felt it better to have minimal impact on the surroundings, the race had no particular aversion to meat eating and were passionate hunters. Many hours of a typical wood elf's life were spent on the hunt, which is both a practical activity and a pleasurable one. Most of the time that wood elves were not hunting, they were enjoying themselves at ease with the highest branches of their forest homes. Wood elves did not, however, commonly keep pets, but instead formed bonds with local wildlife in a manner similar to those of a ranger. Wood elves were particularly fond of mountain lions, pumas, and leopards. For magic and religion, wood elves were generally uncomfortable with most forms of magic, viewing wizards and other arcane spellcasters with no small amount of distrust. Clerics and other divine spellcasters fared a little better in wood elven eyes, who saw the prayers as a useless call to distant and alien gods. However, wood elves were largely at ease with the ways of the problem magic used by druids, barbarians, and shamans, which they felt was the truest expression of supernatural power. were rather a reflection of nature itself, used to protect the wilderness. However, Wood Elves were not completely averse to arcane magic, and Wood Elven bards, sorcerers, and wizards were far from unknown, although Wood Elves as a whole had no particular tradition of the art. Like other Tel'Quisiir, the Wood Elves largely worshipped the Seldrain, but unlike the kin, they did not do so exclusively. Many Wood Elves have a special place in the heart for the gods Sylvanas and Maliki, whose protection of the wilderness was something that the Wood Elves themselves tried to espouse. Among the Elven gods, the Wood Elves were most commonly worshipped Salanor, Thalindira, and Rilithane Ralathil, who, like Sylvanas and Maliki, had particular connections to the untamed wilderness. Salanor, as a god of archery, was perhaps the most popular god amongst the Wood Elves, who would sometimes invoke him as their protector and patron deity just prior to a battle. The relation with other races, although a proud people themselves, Wood Elves often felt that their Tel'Quisiir kindred, such as the Yar Tel'Quisiir, too often put on an air of superiority and xenophobia that was ultimately detrimental. Wood Elves looked to the examples of the ancient Elven empires and, seeing failure after failure, felt that their aim should be compassion and humility rather than political or military strength. Unlike many of their kin, Wood Elves felt that their fates were inextricably tied to those of Faerun's other races, and they made no effort to pull away or isolate themselves. Ironically, so reclusive were Wood Elven settlements that, despite their open nature, Wood Elves rarely actually saw people from outside their race. Of all the humanoid races of Faerun, the ones most familiar with the Wood Elves were the humans and dwarves native to the north, who often lived within the vicinity of the Fae. Still, few humans and dwarves had ever actually met a Wood Elf, and when they did, it was often largely by chance. However, when meetings did occur, they were mostly largely friendly, and like the Moon Elves, Wood Elves saw themselves as allies and teachers of humanity, rather than as rivals. Wood Elves also had a long tradition of friendship with the Shield Dwarves of Amarandar, dating back to the reign of Erland, which carried on into the present. Wood Elves also felt a kinship with the sapient Giant Elves, with whom they formed a symbiotic relationship. In return for the elves acting as protector for the owls, the birds of prey often acted as advanced scouts for Wood Elven warriors. Gnomes and halflings were less frequent guests among the Wood Elves, but they were generally seen favourably. Conversely, Wood Elves, like most Tel'Quisiir, had a strong contempt for orcs as well as for gnolls, though the reasons were less about the ancient enmity between Corellan and Grumsh, and more of the devastation that raiding parties often brought to the forest that Wood Elves held dear. So the history, Wood Elves were the last of the Elven subraces to appear in Faerun, though not through the same method as other subraces. The Wood Elves were actually native to Faerun, the descendants of the Wild Elves, Moon Elves, and Sun Elves who decided to retreat to the deepest woodland sanctuaries after the last of the Crown Wars. Unlike the majority of the dispossessed survivors of the Crown Wars, who abandoned their homelands and went on to found new kingdoms elsewhere, the ancestors of the world stuck to their ancestral holdings and swore to never wage war on their kin again. While not following the same path as the Wild Elves, they formed entirely networked communities, leaving behind high magic and becoming closer to nature. It was from the interbreeding between these people that the Wood Elves emerged. In the eastern High Forest, the Wood Elves found the realm of Erlon, around minus 4,700 by Dale reckoning. There, they befriended the dwarves of Dalezon and later taught the Netherese about magic, a decision they would later have reason to regret. Following the Netherese discovery of the Nether Scrolls, Netheril blossomed into a mighty empire that soon overshadowed the elves who had helped it find its feet. The elves of Erlon were worried about the sudden rise in power and attempted to subtly check the humans' pride and expansion for centuries. Their efforts would be undone when Karsus attempted to gain godhood and failed, causing the death of Mistral, the fall of Netheril. In case you haven't known, I will do a video after, particularly with humans and the Netheril Empire, based on the story about how Netheril fell due to the spell. When Karsus tried to gain godhood and he made the only 12th level spell, and that spell was known as Karsus' Folly, where he tried to use a spell to attain godhood and end the war in one hit. I don't know, by trying to destroy the Fire Room. That Netheril were always at war with. But basically, the eventual fall of the First Empire of Ilfan, taking responsibility for Netherworld's beloved people, the worlds allowed many of the Empire's refugees to settle in Ascalon. For a time, peace reigned in Elon, but once again, the folly of the nation's human allies brought disaster. In 882 DR, a mass summoning of Delvers by Ascalon's mages backfired, resulting in the conquest of the city by the Fiends. A year later, after a long struggle against the devils of Ascalon, the severely weakened nation, Erlon fell to a horde of conquering orcs. Erlon was the last of its kind, and 9 new wooden elven nations arose since its fall. The attempts have been made before the mid-14th century by Dale reckoning. Instead, Wood Elves largely kept to the lands they already inhabited, fortifying their position rather than expanding into new territories. The Wood Elves ignored the call of the retreat, staying on the mainland to look after their small villages and protect the forest. When the retreat ended, they emerged once more as a people devoted to protecting their native forest. Although some Wood Elves still dreamt of restoring Erlon, they felt that they had learnt their lessons, and so, to avoid the empire building of the kin or of humans, instead of maintaining a strong but largely non-aggressive role in regional geopolitics. Homelands was often, they were the most common of the elves in favour, which I found kind of contradictory with the Moon Elves, and could be found in many scattered groups across the continent. Many could be found in the Elven Court, Semblerholm, Tangled Trees, and the old Elven Court itself, the Great Dale, Tether, the Western Heartlands, the Forest of Leather, the High Forest, and the Weldath. And that's basically all. So I'd like to thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, sorry, my voice is starting to give out. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, a comment, and subscribe. I've got to try and let my voice heal now. So maybe I'll post again tomorrow, but maybe a little bit later than usual because my voice is starting to get a bit sore. But yeah, if you enjoy, please leave a like, a comment, or subscribe. And we'll close in the next Fireball archive we'll look into. It will be the Avario Elves, or also known as the Winged Elves. So we'll look into those guys next and see what they're all about. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye bye.